fáilte róbhaigh tá mé lánsáasta bhí an seo libh agus le Siobhán anocht. Just great to see everybody. We were talking just as we were all getting together around, Mags there had mentioned about the golden glue, or Linda actually, we talked about the golden glue that holds people together, and especially when you go through life, if you hit difficulties or struggles, and that idea of kintsugi, you know, golden repair, when something is broken, you know, in Japan, they used the idea of putting things back together, but with glue, golden glue, so it's even more beautiful than before. And in a way, that's been a theme for us going through everything, is that glue that holds us all together. So already you can see that happening here tonight, just the buzz of everybody coming in. Agus cógardas tá Glór na Móna agus féile na carige and ócad seo agus rudí eile tá san clár, tá clár inte golará and teach na lig. So I'm a wee bit nervous, and I'll tell you why I'm nervous starting off, is two things. I was given a cup of tea, and Siobhán was given a glass of wine. So I don't know if what that augurs, if that augurs well. And the other thing I did overhear you saying is that if your parents come in, that you're going to knock the head of them for being late. So no, really delighted, Siobhán, to get this opportunity. And I suppose we connected, like Fergal said, Siobhán and myself connected originally, and was during lockdown. I think it was probably through Twitter. Initially, we kind of seen some of the stuff, really good, strong messaging that you were always, you know, sharing and posting and challenging on social media, but just always so incisive and, you know, on point always. And then Fergal, you had said that Siobhán, the Scravery Slave to was starting up, the writing group here, so we kind of connected that way. I'd also listened to a podcast you'd done with Aras O'Connell, I think, and then you'd done an interview with Joe Austin.
Yep.
So when I finally got to meet you, I thought I knew a fair bit about you, but I think for us tonight, with the time we have, one thing that Joe Austin said really stuck in my head, and he said in the run-up to his interview with you, somebody had gone off to find out a bit about you and came back and said, listen, this woman is not an interview, she's a book. And I think that's to keep that in our minds tonight, because honestly, you know, we could be, Siobhán, there's just so much to your story, to you and your story, just really incredible. I think for anybody who knows, or if you don't, we'll find out as we go along. But maybe just because we connected around the writing, we're keen to kind of spend some time tonight talking about that, and particularly I suppose the healing power of writing and how that works, because people talk a lot about it, but it'd be good to hear from Siobhán, because she's so immersed in it and invested in it, and with the recent book launch as well. So we'll talk about that, but I think to start us off, just to start where everybody starts, are you going to start with a poem?
Yep.
First of all, yeah, we'll start with a poem and then we'll have a chat.
So just as Sarah mentioned there, kintsugi was a theme that ran through our Screavery and Sliv, but also another group that we did with Damien Gorman via PPR, and then with our good friend Michael Patrick MacDonald, who also introduced the theme of kintsugi. So it was this theme that was running, a tapestry that was just being woven in front of me, and it made this is what happened as a result of it. So I'll read the poem instead of talking nonsense. So, golden repair kintsugi. Broken, like Granny's most treasured, irreplaceable delf, smashed to smithereens. A believer in cures, holy oils, healing lakes, relics, myths, and faith healers, I journeyed to Inniskeen. Body, mind, and spirit fragmented, in need of healing and much repair. A debris ball in a tornado, splintered pieces in a storm of despair. I emerged from the little cottage, recalibrated on a mission to find my true self. My scars became my roadmap in pursuit of mending Granny's precious delf. Slowly retracing my path through introspection, each scar illuminating like golden thread. A tapestry of each battlefield, illnesses conquered, survival when told I should be dead. Grateful to the many physicians whose healing hands stitched me together with golden glue, to all who loved and prayed for me, your compassion was golden too. But it was I, this time, who made the golden joins. Each sliver, splinter, shard and wisp were still fragile. My own kintsugi project, acceptance of cracks and flaws, enabling me once again to smile. Like the wise men from the East, I now understand the repair of gold. In your brokenness, you will emerge more beautiful than before, a message that should be shared and told.
So Siobhán, maybe just to start us off the conversation, and before we go in and talk about the writing, one of the things that I came across that you'd said in one of your early interviews, you said that place of birth, family life and education have been instrumental in shaping and defining me as the person I am today. And you always talk so proudly, I think, and your sense of community and belonging to a really strong community, and that always comes across when you're talking about where you're from and the community. But also, I think what comes across is you seem to have always intuitively had this strong sense of justice and equality, and that there is a class dimension to things as well. And that's something I know is really, really important. But could you reflect a wee bit on just those early years, as you say, your place of birth, your family, your community, and education, how all of that's been really instrumental in shaping you?
Yeah, well, I grew up in Aris Close, just the Mid-Falls area. We initially lived in the Lower Whack, as people call it. I was born in Burnaby Walk, and then my parents relocated a couple of seconds up the road, but it felt like a lifetime away. So they moved me from St. Joseph's Primary School to St. Catherine's, and it was in that school that I felt safe. The surrounding areas it was an area of deprivation. British soldiers popped out of the walls like unwanted weeds, which I mentioned in one of my poems. Your journey to school, we ran through the Blackie or the Bray, got into school, and once you were in that Dominican campus, behind that wall on the Falls Road, you felt safe, you felt nurtured, you felt cared for. And the teachers had this remarkable ability to they instilled in you that you could be anything that you wanted to be. But also, outside of that wall, then we would go to Willowbank Youth Club or St. Paul's Youth Club or Clonard, and it was community leaders that would have told us, what the outside world label you as is not who you are, and don't ever let that define you. So it was just education in St. Catherine's was your passport out of poverty. If you can go next door to this gorgeous school with all these girls in their beautiful maroon uniform and their tartan skirt, you can be anything. And it was in that wee playground, it was probably the size of this room. That's no exaggeration. Our playground wasn't much bigger than this, all concrete. But that wee nook around the Dominican campus, there was a beautiful garden. It's now a car park where St. Dominic's is, but it was a beautiful, people used to go and get their communion, confirmation or wedding photographs there. And it was behind all this brutality and oppression and decay and deprivation, this wee oasis of nature. So our teachers would have took us out there, round the gardens, and then over to St. Mary's to do PE. And I always remember thinking it was really strange because none of the students that taught us PE sounded like me. They were all from the country. We're all big GAA boys and girls. And I felt so loved in there. They wrapped their arms around you. Suppose they were training to be teachers and I didn't understand that at the time. And I remember looking at that rose window. Me and Bones have had this conversation about that Harry Clark window. I used to look at that and think, I'm going to go there. When we went over to do rehearsals for confirmation or any kind of penitentiary or, religious
Sacraments.
Didn't get the word. When you were in that little chapel, the light the way it like sort of permeated through the window, there was something very special about that convent, and I just thought that's where I need to be to get to somewhere that I don't understand where I'm going, but I need to be here to get to there. And then in St Mary's College, I used to think, oh, I'd love to be here, but I never ever believed that that's where I would end up. So yeah, education and voting were two of the things drummed into us as children, from grandparents, parents, community leaders, political leaders. Vote and read, educate, educate, educate. The library, Carnegie Library, myself and Bones have had this conversation as well. We used to go from St Catherine's, which is directly facing the Royal. The building is now knocked down, but it's a convent, like a home for the nuns, built in the same architecture. But when you left that little oasis and then went out onto the Falls Road, there were sometimes bomb scares. We were locked in the library one day because they tried to bomb the Sinn Féin office, which was next door. But when we went in there, learning was, you found a wee cosy nook, you lay in the corner, our teachers read us Roald Dahl or whatever, and all those characters kind of made you think, right, we're wretched souls. Mm-hmm. What happens in these stories can be our reality too. We can get from where we are now to somewhere that isn't something in our imagination.
So, and I heard you saying as well, when you're in terms of your parents instilling that love and the importance of education, that your mother used to always say to you, words are really important. Words will, you know, make you smart. You know, it's very, very important. So you could see it coming through. So in a way, it's no surprise that you ended up then going. You seem to have a focus, but that you went and trained as a teacher and became a teacher up in
Christ the
Redeemer. And just when you hear you talking about the children as well and trying to instill what, you know, your own love of learning and words and stories as well with the children. I mean, what when you were a teacher, what were the things you were trying to get across to the children in terms of life lessons, I suppose?
I try to emulate the people that I saw that like inspired me. So I took a wee bit of everybody and then tried to act that person out. Mm-hmm. Not imitation, but like literally these people are so inspiring that I want to inspire the people in front of me. And they end up in your own community in a school like Christ the Redeemer, which was a brand new state-of-the-art building. I came out of college at 23 and straight into there, 22, whatever age it was. And because of all my health issues, it was like, all my friends were like, you've ended up in a permanent job right away. How did that happen? But then I think that really gave us a sense of security because of what would come down the line regarding all of my health issues. So to find yourself, a lot of people in Christ or Leigheasanna think that they're up the roaders. You know, we used to think Andy Towners were up the roaders. But down the roaders moved to Leigheasanna and got houses pretty cheap whenever houses were a lot less expensive. And they did well for themselves. And every parent that I came across had nothing when we were growing up. Most of them were the peers of my siblings or peers of myself, and they had nothing, but they worked their butt off. And everything that was instilled in us in our generation about education was what was happening to the children in front of me. You had parents who literally would walk to the ends of the earth for their children. I felt so supportive. I remember thinking, you know, imposter syndrome, myself and Fergal have had a conversation about that before and thinking that you shouldn't be in that room. Well, if people try and tell you shouldn't be in that room, you need to get your boot and kick the door down. And then you need to find a chair and pull it up to the table if you're not welcome at the table. And then you need to take over the table because you do deserve to be in that room. And that's very, like, I just felt so fortunate to be, like, because I was a young single mum, I felt like I was in a fortunate position and I was exactly where I needed to be, helping people who were like me. You were passing something on to those children in turn, what you had been, had been given. Siobhán, I was just thinking, you have that poem in your book that you wrote for Aoife. Just wonder, would this be a nice time to read that poem? Yeah. So the background, be brave. Is it? Be bold. Be bold. Be bold. So the background of this story is during lockdown, it was literally before we were going on a Zoom with Scott, and Aoife was doing her UCAS form, And the teacher, who is an amazing fella, he actually taught me A-level politics and broadened my horizons and widened my outlook. He was from Lisburn. He was a Orange Order member when he was younger. In 1995, he came to St Dominic's, and I think, looking back, how brave was that and courageous? Not only that St Dominic's employed him, but that he had the courage to come onto the Falls Road and argue with us. And let me tell you, I argued with him. There used to be murder. Dolores Barnes is in the audience. I used to have murder with this man. But actually, it was a really healthy murder because it was during the period of the Good Friday Agreement, A-level politics students, and I was like, no. But anyway, he told Aoife, don't bother applying to Galway. You're never going to get in. They don't take students from the north. They very rarely do. And you need 3 A stars at least to get in. She came down the stairs roaring like a baby, saying he just annoyed the life out of me. And I was like, is that right? So this is what came out of me. So be bold. My dearest child, I pestered you to always comply, behave, and be good. Now, to be honest, I contemplate this advice and wonder if I ever should. For sometimes in this life, the path tests us, and one must learn to be bold. Being bold is an attribute that should be worth its weight in gold. That doesn't mean be insolent, defiant, blunt, or rude. Being bold does not always equate to the opposite of being good. Be bold by looking within. Seek wisdom in each life lesson and every book. Equip yourself with knowledge to widen your horizons, outwardly look. For boldness can lead to the fulfillment of all your aspirations, hopes, and dreams. It can give you the courage to climb, no matter how high the mountain seems. When doubts come riding in like a band of thieves, trying to steal your hope, have the boldness to fight the doubts. Be resilient, learn to cope. Don't let your vision be blinkered by those who fail to have the insight or desire to share it. Remove yourself from said company. Don't let their negativity dull your spirit. Don't ever be the little girl who goes up and lost their brave. Let your inner conscience be let your inner conscience be the compass of your soul, to guide but not enslave. When you should meet with failure, don't be defeated. Surrender and start again. The lessons you will learn from failure will bring wisdom that will outweigh the pain. Be bold, my child, embrace fully this roller coaster called life. To laugh, to forgive, to love, to cry. Be the change you want to see. Strive to be better until the day you die.
Wow. Listen, that's such a beautiful gift for any parent to give their child, to write a poem like that. But also, I know it's gone beyond your family, and that schools are now contacting you to ask you to come in to share the poem. And you've been in recently in Rathmore judging the poetry competition for National Poetry Day, as they call it. But I suppose the thing that strikes me, Siobhán, always, and in that poem it's there, with all of the very considerable challenges, health challenges that you've faced, and other situations in life, and you talk about these, but you always seem to find a way to take what I would call the positive is too simple, but the learning from it, and you really kind of stand back from situations and think, well, what is this about? And in that situation as well, I mean, that's a powerful way of turning something that was really negative for your daughter into something. And giving it back out to the world and to the community. Because after a few years when you were teaching, you were faced with really very serious health problems and long-term hospitalisation, life-threatening illnesses and surgeries at different times. But when I listen to you talking about them, even the experiences in the hospital, and I don't know if you'd like to maybe just touch on a few of them, but you can see that you're always there thinking about the situation you find yourself in and the dynamics of it, the experience you had with a priest at one stage in terms of, but always having that critical eye to everything, despite how difficult your situation is, and then taking it. And it's the transformation, I think, I suppose the word I'm looking for, how you can manage to take really, really difficult and transform them. So maybe if you could just even talk a wee bit about that, you know.
Yeah, I know I've said this often, and that mountain behind us that means so much to so many people in this room, especially Fergal, whose daddy saved that mountain, you know. And I remember during a period when I was very unwell, Damien your father hadn't passed long, and Damien was appointed into the Belfast Hills on your father's roll. But the majority of my hospitalisation was in either the Royal or the Belfast City Hospital. And it's unbelievable that no matter what corner of the hospital you go to, the mountain's still visible. And so what I would do as a way of coping, it's horrendous to spend, you know, a week in hospital. When you're 13 weeks in, it's like you're ready to lose your shit. Sorry. But it's very challenging. And my way of coping, well, firstly, Damien and the children would come all the time to visit me. And when they would arrive, you've no idea what that does. Your vibrations just rise. So if you've any loved ones or any friends or family that have spent time in hospital and you think that it doesn't mean much to nip in for 20 minutes, you've no idea what that means to that person lying in a bed, maybe hooked up to blood transfusions or morphine drips. I know Dolores Barnes spent New Year's Eve with me in 2002. Her and her mother came down, and Aoife hadn't been born, and she tried to come at 25 weeks and they were like, this child isn't going to live. And I will never forget them coming to me on a New Year's Eve, a time when you spend time with your family. But my coping mechanism was I would pretend I was at the top of the mountain, like looking down at my childhood behaviours, which weren't always well behaved. Like Willowbank Youth Club, but out the back at the river when we got up to no good.
Sorry to interrupt you, but spoilt, cheeky and bold as brass. And do you know who said that about you? Yourself.
Oh, myself.
You described yourself as that as a child.
I was a bad one, like, God love my man, Dad.
So you were in the hospital looking down and thinking, just drawing all that to mind?
It was sort of like trying to remember who you are, where you came from, and Fhéile played a massive part in our lives. 8 years of age when Fhéile was introduced, street parties, that connection and community, and people who had nothing going around the doors, gathering £1 for each street party. I went to the Beachmount street parties, I went to the Irish Close ones. I even made my way over to Clonard, so I was a wee bit.
Got you on tip now.
I was a wee bit of a mongrel. No, as long as you paid your pound, you were allowed to go. But equally, I babysat children from I was no age. Looking back, I can't believe the parents used to leave these wee babies with me and let me mind them. I was like 9 or 10. And honestly, that's the truth. They went to the Peter Pan or the Clonard and I'd have been minding their babies. And I remember one of our neighbours saying to me, oh, you used to like smack our on you. And I was like, no, it didn't. You shouldn't have left me when I was 10 years of age. But what got me through all those, like, I think when we last tallied it up, I'd spent close to about 350 nights in hospital over the last 15 years. And the longest period being that 13-week period when I got my kidney out. And honestly, being a Westie is what got me through. Being from this road, from this community, the people that I grew up around is what got me through everything that I had to deal with. And I don't think if I was part of any other community, I would have that same ability to be resilient.
So like the strength that you were getting,
it was like
drawing in from.
And they always lifted me up. When I became a young teen mum, I worked for Big Eddie McClaverty. I don't know if anybody knew the greasy spoon that was Tara hot food, but Dolores, I know your mummy and daddy used to come. All the people used to drive from North Belfast just to get Big Eddie's fish.
Sounds delightful, the greasy spoon.
But here, people called him Sweaty Eddie, right?
Even better.
And he had red fairy hair. Like he was a grump beyond belief. But I'll never forget whenever I was a young girl at college and he was paying me cash in hand. But like, obviously you weren't entitled to sick pay, and I was in the hospital, and I arrived round to my mummy's house on Christmas Eve with like the 12 weeks money, 12 weeks of wages that I'd missed. And that's the power of West Belfast, even though he's an ordinary, he lived in Stockmans. So, but he was so good to me, and his wife Dolores, you know, Dolores used to come in with the beehive on. She would have been half cut coming into the chippy, and she'd been like, "Oh, what do you want tonight, love?" But the characters like that who, you know, that saying, it takes a village to raise a child.
Just thinking about that saying,
Not only did they raise me, but they raised Owen, and Owen, who's now a 25-year-old man, I think that his journey ended up the way it is because of the people who impacted, you know, and it's unbelievable.
When Siobhán was talking there, I'm sure everyone is getting, you know, the pictures you're painting when you're describing even the chipper and the characters in the chipper, you're just bringing it to life so vividly. And it seems like you've always done that from when you were a child. And then you talked about that window earlier, you know, the stained glass window. When you talk and describe, you can see them. And I'm kind of both wondering at what point, because a lot of being a writer is actually observing and taking in and always observing and keeping it, you know, in your head, and you're writing the stories in your head before you ever put the pen to paper. But to think, when did you start to really seriously start to put things down on paper? Because you're now with one book under your belt, and I'm sure lots more to come. But
it's really strange because I never decided to lift the pen. Actually, the credit goes to my big sister, our Kathy. In 2019, I was 8.5 months in the bed. I was wearing adult nappies, couldn't feed myself, couldn't wash myself, couldn't do anything. Had 3 hospitalisations in the space of a very short period of time. And the treatment from 2003, you would have arrived at A&E and been seen right away. I was left 30 hours on a trolley or in a chair. I was in complete agony. My body just flops. It's hard to explain what M.E is, and that's why I feel so proud that this pamphlet will hopefully enlighten people to how debilitating and cruel the illness is. But I felt suicidal, and that's really the God's honest truth. I felt like I'm lying here. I don't look after my household. I can't feed my children. I was somebody who always was very house proud. And my sister said to me, "You need a fucking fight." And that's the reality. She said, "See, if you don't lift the pen and go in to find your way out, that's the only way you're going to deal with this. You need to fight." And she was like, "I'm working with a group through social prescribing." She was an English teacher, and she'd give up teaching to go into this role. And she was like, "I'm dealing with chronically ill people. I'm dealing with people who are bereaved. Bereaved also are people who have had loved ones died by suicide." And she said, "These people are coming to my writing group, and the transformation in their being, connection, community, solidarity, just feeling part of something." And it's very important to feel part of something with like-minded people, because if it's not the people who are on the same journey or path or wavelength as you could be lifting the pen all day and it doesn't matter. So I started off with writing down 2 positive. She said, "Just write 2 words, please, please, please. 2 positive words a day." And it might have been family, love, kids. Do you know, it started off with that. And then I started hearing rhyme in my head, but I don't know whether I was saying this to Fergal earlier. I tried to find a way of finding routine, because I just was lying. I felt like you were being locked in. My body literally wouldn't coordinate with my brain. So you lift a glass to drink, that's a natural, you know, decision. You don't think about it, it just happens. Where with this disease, sometimes your body and brain just don't coordinate. And I felt so frustrated, angry, bitter. It was like going through the processes of grief, but not actually grieving somebody that died, grieving your old self. And the 2 words started to go to rhyming words for some reason. And all of a sudden I was writing poems, and I'd send it into our Goodfellas group chat. or I'd send it into the family group chat and they'd all be like, oh, good girl. Oh, we love you, that's brilliant, love, well done. And I'm like, oh no, it's not class. I can't believe I wrote that because I couldn't even fucking brush my teeth today. And this went on anyway. And I was doing this, like, I didn't share any of it publicly, only with a very, very small group of friends and family. And then I was asked to do an interview for a South African poetry show with a girl called Mo, who was in Kathy's writing group. Fergal heard it, contacted me and said, we're doing a writing group, would you get involved? See if I said to you, you can win the Euro Millions or you can be part of this, I would pick being part of Spreagúil and Sliv. What that did, and I've said this often, and myself and Michael Patrick have had this conversation so many times. I went from an observer in the bed to a participant in life. And because Damien and the kids and the boys are in the background there, were at home during lockdown, all of a sudden, I was out of the bed a wee bit more. We're very, very competitive family. We love the old quizzes. Old Kaylee boy at the back there is the best at the quizzes. And so they would try and, obviously there was lots of fundraisers and quizzes happening. And then this opportunity happened. And then it led me to be friends with you, Sarah. And look at what that's opened up. I'm now an activist for New Script for Mental Health. I've been out and about and getting on like I'm owning the show. Up at Stormount trying to slay all round.
Yeah, and we'd be good to talk and tell a bit more about that as well. But just it is what you're saying, Siobhán, around the writing, for all of us to keep in mind that, you know, it can be a fearful thing and can seem a bit like, oh, daunting. Well, that's not for me. That you have a book, so you're obviously really good at it. But those lessons that you said in there, we don't want to pass over. You were saying, like, just start with something, even if it is only putting two words together, and also you don't have to show anybody. Yeah. I think that's the fear, and that, you know, somebody's going to judge me, somebody's going to see this and judge me harshly, and think it's, you know, it's. But I think the bit that you're doing is just keep at it, keep chipping away at it. I think because you were starting to. It is like doing sculpting or something. You have to find those golden threads, but you have to keep at it.
But even like the therapy, the cathartic release that you get from just offloading, and I know Michael Patrick will often say it's very hard to go to places of pain. I had never really discussed trauma until I got involved in this group. I didn't really understand that my body is actually trapped with emotional pain all over because of all the different surgeries or the different things that have happened. Retiring at 36 years of age was absolutely devastating. Like, I woke up every day and cried. I used to get my high heels out and put them on, and I had fluffy pajamas on, and we had this conversation recently. You could have plotted the hairs in my leg. It was like Princess Fiona after dark. But I'd get the old red heels out and put them on and go, fuck, this is what it used to feel like. I went to work every day in 4-inch heels. I put them on the night and being brave. I wore them last week. Sean had to carry me down the stairs in Stormount. But it's like the healing that you can gain from offloading. And often, whenever you're with people, they can trigger something in your head, or the conversations or the opportunities for healing that come about as a result of the prompts that Michael Patrick has provided. But not even that, like Damien Gorman, we're really excited that there's an up-and-coming Desperate Monologue series happening with him. But what Fergal put together, and I don't know whether he even realises the people that he connected, like, we're always going to be friends for the rest of our lives, the whole group. And it was like, I'll never forget Sharon reading something one night. She had a double mastectomy, and I came away and I wept. And what you realise is you have problems, so does everybody else. And there's always somebody worse off than you. See, if you have a roof over your head, you have food on the table, and a family that loves you, you're richer than most. And I have a family that love me. I have a roof over my head. I'm back in the West, which I know I've said to you before, Sarah, has completely reopened up my life. Just being back here, it's unbelievable. Yeah. Money can't pay it.
Siobhán, you know the poem you have, Dip Your Scars in Iron?
Yep.
I think, would you mind, would it be all right to read that now?
Yep.
And then maybe, I know there's quite a few people here, just as Siobhán's finding the poem, quite a few people in the room tonight have, at different times, through New Script for Mental Health or through Glór and Móna, have done the writing programme with Michael Patrick. So just for people who don't know what that is, we always talk about Michael Patrick as if he's...
He's God.
Yeah. Michael Patrick MacDonald is a Boston Irish writer and community organiser, and over a number of decades he's developed a programme. It's a trauma-informed creative writing, more storytelling programme actually. I mean, he always emphasised you don't have to be writing. All of this is about storytelling. As you can see, it's about, you know, sharing and telling stories, having listeners and having, which is the bit in the group, there's somebody listening to your story, somebody else is telling the story. But he runs a programme, it's only a 5-week programme, 2 hours a week, but there's something in it, there's some, well, magic and not magic. I mean, it's very well kind of thought through and theoretically based in terms of trauma studies and how trauma is held in the body. And the writing is not about giving anybody a voice, it's about finding a space and supporting people to find their own voice. We all have a voice, but people's voices are silenced because of trauma. So that there's a process there, but it's always with other people in community. That's the magic bit, I think, that how it works. So maybe after you read your poem, Siobhán, if there are people who want to even say a bit about that, about the rest of the story and how other people have experienced just using writing as a healing and a transformative process.
Yep. Dip your scars in iron. Dip your scars in iron, illuminate, let them brightly shine, like the exposing of your soul in the holiest of shrine. God only sends the most difficult battles to those capable of winning the war. The scars are proof of strength and endurance to survive war forevermore. As darkness slowly creeps in and silence is all that you can hear, remember, I am with you, and the angels, they are near. The battles you have fought, mapped out with scars on skin, they prove the next battle to fight is a war that you can win. So dip your scars in iron. Be ready to face the test. Dig deep, head up, standing tall. I'm proud I'm from the West.
It's just such an empowering poem. Every time I hear it, I think there's so much fight in it and spirit in it. It's absolutely fantastic.
I was telling Bones one day, had a complete pity party, a meltdown, which I normally do. The lads are at the back. None of them suffer my meltdowns. They're like, catch yourself on. Ways to up. And the words in that are actually words that Dee would probably say to me regularly, like throughout hospitalisations. I would have woke up and he'd have been at the end of the bed reading Chicken Soup for the Soul or The Alchemist or literature that lifts you up, and there's real healing to be found in the words. And to be honest, I think I'm really lucky. I know he's not here tonight. He should be here. I don't know where he is, lads. But he was over with Jordanstown tonight, taking the University of Ulster team. But actually, every time I fell, meaning back in hospital, a kidney out, throat surgery, hysterectomy, whatever happened, I remember when we went on our honeymoon, you know, you look at your body in a different way when you've got these scars that, and mine's look like Frankenstein, you know. Whenever you'd have thought Jaws got a hold of my wee side whenever my kidney got ripped out. But he would say, listen, that makes me love you more. That makes me attracted more to you because I can see the strength and the power in you. And when you fall forward, but get back up and dig deep. It's in you to find a way out of whatever it is. And I really feel lucky that he's my life partner, my coach, whatever he is. He's like living with a life coach, really. I think he wants to do me in half the time, but he is.
I think you need to get Damien in next for an interview, for a conversation with.